share a variable
Yeah.
that I could use independent of, the state. And that's what I was attempting to do here.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it only did it once and it
Yeah.
wouldn't increment every time I hit the button.
Right. Yeah. It's if you want to see it, it has to be observed, and to get it to be observed, it has to go here.
Okay.
How does it play into local versus global?
Can you provide a bit more
So
context?
okay, if the data wasn't a function and you were just an object,
Mm-hmm.
then would it be global?
Yeah, so the reason why this is a function and not just an object, because on the internet, I'm sure you'll see examples of view objects with just an object here and not a function. So if this is just an object, that means that this is shared throughout the entire application. So it's going to be sharing what's going on. So each one of your scoreboards, each one of our counters, will be tied to the exact same count.
So is that a way to maybe have props almost? that are being
Almost.
passed?
You could do some really kludgy stuff with that.
Mhm,
Typically, you want your components to be isolated. That's the whole point of a component.
mhm.
So this function guarantees that you're returning a new object per component. So each scoreboard column that you have will have its own count instead of sharing a count everywhere. Chris and then V.
So, is this just an open discussion we can talk about?
That's okay.
Okay. So, when in app, I would pass props to scoreboard, right?
Yep.
And then in scoreboard, I would basically get the props, and then if I wanted to do any manipulation with them, I read the new documentation and said to basically make them local by in the data function saying count equals this dot count or something like that.
Yep.
But I would keep getting an error message that would say you've already declared it, or something about it being a prop and not being able to put it into data. It's saying you're calling it twice, and I even changed the names and everything.
Yeah.
It still didn't.
That's interesting. But yeah,
So that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, that error is interesting.
Okay.
We can as we explore more of that, if that comes up, we can kind of tackle that. Yeah, documentation is right. You should just be able to do like this dot count, and now access the props, and then you should get the whatever was passed in and set that inside of your data.
So I guess one of the things that I see is that at least now, we're doing perhaps a duplication of effort in code, more in React than we're doing here at the moment. And I was just wondering, is there a central place that we could create a file that has, say, global settings or global variables
Mhm.
that then we could just, because they're being shared like I don't know, a property or a data that's like JSON data. You know, I found that, on a couple of components, I had to basically redo the JSON data, and why can't I just grab it once and then use it as
Yeah, just like over in React, if we wanted to import JSON data, we import data here.
Right, but then if I wanted to use it in another component, the same data for, say movies and television, wouldn't I have to refresh the data again?
So in that case, right now you're kind of switching the problem space. Because originally it was how can I store configuration settings, values locally that I want to reuse over and over again. Yes, that answer is either in a shared file or some sort of shared space. And now you're talking about the TV and movies. That's API data. Yes, you will have to go back out and get that data every time.
I couldn't grab it once and then just, hey.
Because that data is always changing.
Right, but if I grab it,
Yeah, so if you want to grab it and save yourself from going out, let's say you only want to get the now showing once a day, right? Because now showing doesn't change that fast, right? Now showing only changes daily at the most. So now you can take that response stored in local storage and say, hey, is local storage today's? If it is, just use that. If it's not, go out and get the newest one. So you can do something like that.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
If you would like to clear the input, would you have to set like return in the data function, set the text that it's in the placeholder? You
Yeah,
know,
so-
you have the input, you have the placeholder. So you have to set that placeholder, the text like a variable.
Yeah, so if we wanted to set, that's in what our welcome message. Yeah, so if we have this text box here, right? Yeah, so if we have this text box here, and I wanted to reset it back to nothing somehow, I would have a, let's actually code this up real fast. Button clear box. Let's give it a on click. Down here inside of our methods. What?
Message equals message empty string.
Yep, this dot message equals empty string.
Equals? Yeah, equals.
I think that's where I was confused, is how in methods when you're referring to your data
Mm-hmm.
object, you say this dot, but in data, when you want to refer to your props, you say this dot.
Yep.
Is that how it is?
Yes.
Or if you're using this dot in your template, what is that referring to?
This object. This always refers to the current view object.
So if you have a prop called username,
Yep.
and you have a data object key called username, which one is it going to refer to?
It's a great question. Let's find out. After we do this, we're exploring that. And that's one of those weird edge cases that I don't think about on my day-to-day life. But let's find out.
I mean, in this case, Mark, instead of doing the reset button, let's do like an on enter event.
Mm-hmm. So whenever I click enter, or whenever I hit enter,
Its name and then
Yeah.
it deletes my box because right now it's leaving the name there.
so it would be, so we have to use the form to tie into that event. And this no longer click, it would be, what was that?
Submit.
Yep.
So you have to wrap it around the form.
Yep. Let's bring this over here.
Dot prevent.
Localhost 8080. Nope. 8081.
Oh,
There we go. See, I did get it spinning.
Hmm.
So if I wanted to clear box, it did a couple things there, right? Not only, if I'm here, it's going to clear the box, but it also refreshes the page.
That's not
Right, because that's, as Chris said, we remember with forms, we need to prevent the default action. Because what's the default action of a form?
refresh, reload.
Not, technically not. It's doing, that's what it looks like it's doing, right?
It stores, right?
What?
It stores the information.
It's sending the information.
I mean,
It's sending that form's information back to our server or somewhere. And in that request, it's getting a response back, which is then refreshing the page.
so it's the response that triggers the reload of the page,
Mhm.
not the
Yeah,
click
so
there.
so we just want to stop that event from ever going back to our servers.
We want to what?
We want to stop that event from ever going back to our servers. We want
What
we
do we do?
we want to stop it.
Yeah.
Because that's going to trigger the refresh, which then resets the page, and yeah, we don't want that at all.
So you're gonna create a default there?
Mm-hmm. So, then I believe e.prevent default.
That's about it?
Yeah.
That looks wrong, but. So yeah, that's how we would do it.
But it wasn't changing the name, or.
We weren't telling it to. I would just
thought we were just-
now. Nope.
Do you mind trying?
What?
After V on submit,
Yeah,
could you put dot prevent? Because I think
right here.
built in on the form, V on submit dot prevent.
Equals receipt.
Like right after the T and submit, or after,
Right there, yep. I don't know, before the equal sign. Right after the dot prevent. And then you don't even need the prevent default. No, you just need prevent. Yep. And then you can get rid of the E and then prevent.
If this works, Vue is awesome.
I know, that's why I messaged you last night. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's like,
Well, let's see.
it works. That's awesome. Learn something new every day.
There's a bunch of things like that.
Yeah, we've only touched the tip of the Vue iceberg. Like,
No, but is that Vue or is that JavaScript?
that's Vue.
because it's the V on,
Yeah, V on. Every time you see
Oh, it works.
that V,
yeah.
that's Vue. We're saying, hey, on, submit, and then what's the dot preview syntax? Do you know, Chris? Other than it's cool.
I don't know the exact term. I can look it up.
What do you mean that?
So like, what is this actually doing? Like, is that just a syntactical sugar for e.prevent? Yeah, is that just like a shortcut just for this specific thing?
Is that
Or can I leverage other abilities with that? So me as a developer, I'm going, okay, that's awesome, that's fine and dandy, right? We know what it's doing, but why does .prevent work? What else can I put here?
You can put dot stop, dot capture, dot self, dot once, dot passive. But stop would mean stop propagation.
Okay,
That's another one.
okay,
But it's called an event modifier.
okay. So it's so something we haven't talked about really is the event bubble, the event propagation. So event propagation means that whenever we have a click event or some sort of event that fires, it does something called bubble up. There's an order of precedence of what handles the event in what order. So example, if I had in HTML we have lots of components and lots of divs and lots of tags, right? So let's say we have a section that has another section that has a form. That does not look different at all. Like not at all, not at all. Nope. We had a form here, and then we had a button right here. So button, form, section, right? So we have a whole bunch of stuff. So what event propagation does is saying that, hey, if I click here, I'm clicking on this button. I'm also clicking on this form. I'm also clicking on this section. I'm also clicking on this section. So the event is going to bubble up. This button click usually stops that. But if we have an on click on something else, let's say this is no longer a button. This is our good old designer friend said this has to be an image.
Has to be a button.
An image. So now we've lost a whole bunch of that default functionality. So now that event's going to bubble up. Which is fine if these don't have any on click events. Because what will happen is that this on click event will fire. This on-click event will fire, this on-click event will fire, and so will this. We're actually firing off 4 on-click events.
And that's the propagation.
I'm sorry. Did you say? Okay, so the button has an on-click event, right?
Yep.
That it handles.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was an image, it doesn't have an on-click event.
But we're still firing because we clicked on this, and on this.
So a button has a built-in thing that isolates it just to the button.
Right, okay, so the image doesn't have it, so it bubbles up.
And so you're saying with this,
Perfect. So we could do, instead of just dot stop prevent, we can do dot stop, and it would stop that. So we could say v on colon click dot stop, and it'll only fire here instead of all of them.
One more thing, another way, because in Vue you actually don't even need a form to do the enter. I'm reading now, there's a thing called key modifiers that on the input you could say v on key up dot enter, and it would basically say if you click the enter button when you take your finger off the enter button, it'll reset the box.
So that's cool.
A little confusing.
So let's dive down this a little bit further now, because I like this rabbit hole. So key up is an event, right? We're listening for the key up event. And we're saying, but we only care about the enter key here. If I wanted, so Chris, according to the documentations,
Yep.
if I wanted to do enter and space,
Okay, it would be enter plus space.
cool. Enter plus space.
Would that mean that any one of those two keys that you typed it, that you,
or do they have to be at the same
It
time?
actually might be dot space dot whatever, dot space dot tab or whatever other things.
Yeah,
you use.
so it's a nice little prank.
So if you space it, it does it?
Yep.
Okay, so it's not both of them, I thought maybe you had to do space and enter at the same time.
either one?
So you
It's
might
either
want
one.
to tab or a tab or something that way.
But you can't put a team name with two words there.
Yeah, or you're usually only searching by one word. So I've switched it to a tab, and then so it would be all stars tab. I want to tab back.
No, I guess-
Doesn't
There's
like
probably some default stuff in tab or something.
yeah.
So
Let's-
could you use, like, for example, if you're submitting a form, and whether you either clicked a button or click enter or key enter,
Yeah.
that it would take either one of those.
Yeah, this is cool. I'm loving Vue more and more. B, I would still use the form. Because the form has a lot of functionality that I want built in. So like, I want them to be able to either click it or hit enter. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool. And this is just kind of exploring what a framework can do for us.
So if you stop, just going back, if you stop the click on the image, you have to handle the click?
Yes, you don't have to. The handler could just be stopping it. So, but yeah, you don't have to put any actual code. It could just be like e.stop. I think it's e.stop propagation.
And
So,
with
but I'm sorry, if you do stop it, you say stop and then do this.
Yes.
Okay.
So in that example with the propagation, if you submit a form and then you get a return, is that related to the propagation of the form, or is that completely separate from?
It's separate. Because if you get a return from submitting a form, it's going to refresh the whole page. So everything that was running is no longer running.
Originally I started out with having a lot of components, just trying to pass a bunch of things, and then I ended up just going back to just doing the app and then scoreboard. But where I was getting stuck and why I had to do that was because I couldn't figure out how to pass a function or like emit,
Yeah.
just emitting. Is that something to talk about later or?
Yeah, yep, that's probably gonna be a good review too topic. So what Chris was referring to is that, so in React, we had props, right? We had components that had parent and children, right? We knew of a new component inside of another component. And that child component wanted to affect some sort of state in that parent. We have to pass a function down and call that function from the child, right? Does that sound familiar? So how does this happen here in Vue? Well, how this happens in Vue is that the child isn't actually calling a function now. But the child is now doing it's actually emitting an event. It says, hey, this thing was clicked. I'm going to emit my own custom event that my parent is listening for. And so that child is going, hey, here's new information. Here's the information. And then the parent's like, gotcha. I'll take it from here.
So you don't even need to pass a function prop.
Nope.
It just listens.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So,
But there's a specific way we set it.
oh yeah. You have to be listening for the event properly, then you have to actually emit the event properly.
So the parent has to have something written in it that says it's listening, and the child has to have something written in it that says it's emitting.
Is that washers?
Potentially, yeah. So it is 10:52. Let's take a 13-minute break, come back at 11:05, and we'll build something against a API.